That one's there. Okay. And then I come over to this side. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody is having a beautiful day. I hope your Christmas went well. I hope you have plans for the New Year's. I hope you get to be in the arms of the person with whom you are in love with. And yeah, I hope that everything is going amazing for everybody today. I have an incredible guest for you, Dr. Jenna Mullen. I just lost her picture, though. I'm not sure. There she is.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It happens to the best of us. We're here and then we disappear. We're trying to stay in the moment. But I have an incredible guest, ladies and gentlemen. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome an inspiring guest, the incredible Dr. Jenna Mullen. As a doctor of physical therapy, Jenna brings out not only professional expertise, but a genuine love for people and an unwavering passion for enhancing the quality of life for everyone she encounters. Jenna's journey is marked by dedication and a commitment to lifelong learning. She earned her doctorate from the University of Texas Medical Branch in 2014 and has amassed over 15 years of experience in diverse physical therapy settings across California, Texas, and the beautiful islands of Hawaii. What makes Jenna's story even more compelling is her personal connection to the transformative power of physical therapy. Diagnosed with idiopathic scoliosis at the age of 12, what? Jenna navigated the challenges with grace, wearing a back brace for over a year. However, it was the persistent hip, back, and pelvic pain, along with ongoing issues, that fueled her quest for true solutions. Her own journey towards relief and understanding the root causes of her discomfort ignited a passion within her. In her mid to late 20s, through education and personal experience with physical therapy, she discovered profound relief from years of pain. Jenna, thank you so much. Dr. Jenna, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talking with you, and I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah. It's such an exciting time we live in. And I'm always curious when I talk to someone for the first time, like I've read a little bit about some of the things you're doing and what kind of got you on your journey, but maybe you can give us a little bit more of a foundation. Like, who were you before you became the person you are today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like it's evolving,
Totally.
total evolution all the time. But so yeah, I think, my journey, as you touched on, began when I was young, and I had I had an aunt who was a physical therapist. And so she definitely helped me a lot, like when I had scoliosis, and giving me, tools and things to work on. And that was definitely a challenging time. But I feel like my body has been my biggest guiding light and educator, and has just kind of taken me on this path of, finding my own healing and like answers to things I'm experiencing and connecting with people. And then with her guidance of like, why don't you think about what I do, and I've always been in the field of like physical therapy and healing, and wanting to bring healing and hope, to other people. And so I went to school, I guess, kind of fast forward here, but went to school in Texas. I'm from California, and found an amazing school that had a global health program that really called to me. And then in that, in the 3 years that I was in physical therapy school, I did a rotation on Maui.
Nice.
And fell in love with Hawaii. And so when I graduated, I was like, okay, how can I get back there? And so ended up taking a job working with kids with special needs in the schools. And I did that for 9 years and loved it, and still feel connected to those children and their families and the teachers that I worked with. And because the school job is so flexible in time and everything, and I didn't have kids of my own, I'm busy and always kind of like learning and, loving to challenge myself. I always had jobs like on the side. And so I worked in the skilled nursing facilities and outpatient clinic, and always was doing like pelvic floor therapy on the side as well. And so I felt like that was kind of my passion project. I loved my kids so much. I couldn't ever imagine like leaving that job. But, I I began to like really feel connected to these women that I was helping. And so, yeah, when COVID hit, I
Ooh.
was like, we don't know if we're going to have a job, and it's just kind of that like this, like, you work for somebody else, you don't know what's going to happen. And I just felt like we needed like control, more of like,
Mhm.
yeah. So I had already had that idea of like starting my own practice in my head, but I thought when I'm grown up,
Ah.
So finally COVID hit and it was like, well, why not try? So I started my own practice then, but it was just like helping friends and, just something on the side. And then a year later and became, pregnant with my son. And yeah, I was just kind of like, well, this is good, like to have, my own business and helping women and already like preparing for pregnancy and all of that. And so having my son and going through that experience really made me realize just how important pelvic floor therapy is, and um and really the holistic approach,
Yeah.
that I try to bring to that. And so that's now kind of where I am right now is I really focus on helping pregnant and postpartum women, and postpartum meaning like 20 years, even,
Mm.
30 years. Like it doesn't have to mean just right after you have a baby, but, I think a lot of women have issues well, and, later in life that started because they had children. So anyway, that's where, yeah, I'm at right now and enjoying my time with my almost 2-year-old. And my husband is such a big support, and yeah, couldn't do it without him as well. So that's a short snippet of my life, but yeah.
It's amazing. I love to hear the way in which people's lived experience translates into the way in which they can help people throughout the world, in their practice and in their ideas and everything they do. And it sounds to me that COVID, but for a lot of people, was like this transition or almost like a wake up to your true spirit and your true nature. Is that kind of how it was for you? It sounded like things kind of changed at that point in time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I always think of it as like a sifter, it's like
Yeah.
we had, and it was just like, okay,
Yep.
now do something with that,
Yeah.
so just it really like challenged like who we are, and what makes us happy. Like I think it made us question like what is important in your life,
Yeah.
and it really took away everything, and it's like we had to like piece back together like who we want to be, like what we want in our lives, and the
Yeah.
people that we want in our lives. And yeah, um I think everyone had their own experience, right? Some
Right.
had it harder than others, and others, like we were grateful to be able to keep the jobs that we had.
Yeah.
We didn't know, and so that was scary because everyone was like, what's going to happen? But so yeah, there was a lot of good, and things that we are grateful to make it through that time with. But it definitely like shook things up. And um a lot of my friends left Hawaii,
Mm.
and so that was hard to lose them, but also like just seeing that was where their life needed to go. And amazed that like my husband and I are still here after, almost a decade of living here, 9.5 years. It's like, wow. This is, yeah, just a place that I think a lot of people come, whether they know it or not, come for healing.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been, I think that's subconsciously like what drew me here. I think I needed to grow and heal. And then now I'm like feeling like, okay, I am, better and held by the space that we have here. And now I can bring that to others. And yeah, I don't know. I've seen, even you talking about COVID, like I think that brought even more people here that, yeah, needed more healing too. So,
Yeah. There's something spiritual about it on some level, like it nourishes your soul. But maybe this is a good segue into is there a spiritual component to physical therapy? It seems like when you are, I wrote down something here that I thought was relevant, that something along the lines of on some level, I think that PT is almost like when you really get into like the flow state, or when you start doing this physical therapy and you feel this sort of connectedness, it takes you away from the idea of separation and individuation. And sometimes I think that that is part of the problem. Like, we get so in our own heads and we're so individualized. And when you start moving your body and you start figuring out like, hey, I'm a little bit more limber, I'm more flexible, I can see things a little bit better. But is there like have you noticed that? Is there a spiritual component to the physical therapy?
Oh yes, 100%. I mean, I fully believe that and feel that and try to
Yeah.
bring that to my patients and actually try to, in a way, like let that be my guiding light to healing other people.
Yeah.
Like it's not me, you know, it's like
Right.
I'm trying to deepen their relationship with themselves and show them things about their body. Um, and be a guide towards them knowing themselves better on a physical and also mental and spiritual level. And so that's actually in my logo. I don't know, it's a triangle, and it's like there's a lot of layers to that,
Love
but
it.
yeah, but part of that is this body, mind, and spirit, and how it's like that they're all connected and they all touch each other, and healing in one area is going to impact all other areas of our life. And so people come to me for that body healing, that body piece of the triangle, but if done properly, that's going to impact and improve all aspects of their life. I've had some clients where working together, I don't know if they would
Mm-hmm.
ever like piece it together, but I've seen where they were then open to seeking like going to a mental health therapist, or
Yeah.
something where it's like, I think from body healing, we were able to get to a place where they were able to have more clarity in their own life. And, maybe I'm not the one that can help all those
Right.
pieces, but like, then they were like ready for that next level of healing. So,
Yeah, I think it speaks to the idea of alignment. When someone's body is out of line, whether it's scoliosis or whether it is, someone with a hip problem, like you walk a little weird, or as a UPS driver for a long time, I'd hurt my knee and like the whole side of my body would hurt. And I was like, oh, I'm totally out of alignment. Like I'm not doing the right thing. But that makes sense. If your body's not in alignment, then your mind's probably not in alignment. If your mind's not in alignment, your health's not in alignment. And if you change one thing, you change everything. It seems like on some level, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it. And I think on the flip side, somebody that is coming in and is not fully ready for healing, or
Mm-hmm.
like when I, worked in other insurance practice, it's
Yeah.
like their doctor sent them here and they were not ready, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like you could just feel that resistance, or they really needed to like get in their body before you could impact their physical healing at all. It's just like you gave them all the right exercises, you told them how many times to do it, and it's like,
Yeah.
they were not there. And so I think, that's why it's nice when the person is like ready, or they're open to like, okay, I know, I have this knee pain, but like, I don't know. It's like they get that, yeah, they're ready for that on like more than just I need to get rid of this, because that's a small piece of who we are and part of, a small piece of healing and feeling whole. It's like, yeah, the physical pains that we feel sometimes it's like the end of the line. Um,
So true.
it's like
Yeah.
it started with stress management or a trauma, or
Mm-hmm.
something. And then it's like trickling, like impacting the organs of the body. And then that's creating tension in the body that's changing how our breathing is. And then it's like impacting our pelvic floor. And then we're having hip pain, or we're having bladder leakage, or, knee pain. Like most knee
Yeah.
pain comes from either the hip or the foot, it's like, so a lot of times the pain that we're feeling, it's just a symptom. It's just the messenger, and the cause, could be way up at the neck, or
Yeah.
an emotional, something we haven't dealt with, which is
Yeah.
getting out there, especially for physical
Yeah.
therapists, but it's like that gets held in the body and creates tension. And then it's like, a chain reaction. So
It's fascinating. I didn't even put that together, but there's a real chance that, at least in my life, it was my misplaced anger that caused my body to start giving out in some ways. And I never heard it put that way, but yeah, why wouldn't it be a symptom, or why couldn't it be a symptom of a problem that you've refused to deal with for 15 or 20 years? Like, that makes total sense.
yeah,
Like, your body's just like, okay, I've had enough. You got to do something about this, And that can lead to bad relationships. It could lead to, misplaced anger or abuse on some level, maybe physical or emotional. It's so interesting to think about that sort of interconnectedness that's all. I guess that's the beauty of the triangle of
yeah,
Nalu, right?
right, yeah. No, it's been, and I am a forever learner. I feel like
Yeah.
the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. It's kind of
Right. Right.
what happens. But a few years back, I've it just became, through some coursework that I started to
Hmm.
follow and learn. It's like kind of that deeper understanding of the body and
Yeah.
what's happening on the inside, and not just like, oh, elbow, knee, shoulder, neck. And
Hmm.
it's crazy that like we even break our body up into those little sections, and
Yeah.
so it just like burst my, that bubble that how I was trained, for physical therapy school on, and just like thinking about the body in a completely different way,
Yeah.
and deepening my knowledge of anatomy of what's going on deep in our system, and like how our bladder is through fascial lines and is connected to the liver. Even that's like mind blowing, but how all of that can impact, healing, and how the liver might be, especially kind of with Eastern medicine
Hmm.
approach, like the liver can be the holder of anger and unprocessed deep emotions like that. And so if we have, creating tension within that, um, it can trickle down to bladder leakage, or really like then, knee pain or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I'm still learning all that, but being able to like feel, if I have a patient laying on my table and I'm, helping, like I'm mobilizing and moving her uterus, and she's feeling the back pain that she's had 30 years. And it's like, whoa, where is that coming from? You're impacting it in a completely different part of my body that I didn't even know I could access. It's mind blowing, and it's led me to be more and more curious about what's really going on and how our body works together. And I feel it's just, I'm just like an iceberg, tip of the
Yeah.
iceberg, this knowledge. And it's exciting.
It is exciting, and it must be exciting to be able to help people move through the dilemma or move through the pain on some level. Y- On on some level, like I feel like our culture is absent of rites of passage. And I'm curious, as a mother, as someone who's given birth to a child, like, that's an incredible rite of passage. It's an incredible ceremony in some ways. And even though it's celebrated, it's not really celebrated, at least with the people
Mhm.
I know. Like, there's not a group of women that get together and explain, at least not in my family, like, hey, this is going to happen to you. Here's some things that are going to happen afterwards. Here's some ways to fix it. Like, I think that's kind of unique to one of your messages, that you are helping this sort of rite of passage afterwards. Like, it's kind of unique. Can you speak more to that idea?
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I think that it is almost like it's a sad thing that we don't celebrate,
Yeah.
this birth and women's bodies, but
Yes.
not just to like silo women. I think men's bodies are amazing too, and we can't do it without you. But this amazing experience and what our body is able to go through in such a short time span.
Yep.
I used to think, when I was sitting in physical therapy school, like learning about like the pregnant body, and I'm just like, who would ever do that to themselves? Like, it's like, never having kids. And then fast forward 10 years, and I'm very grateful for, that experience.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing experience, and that our body is capable of that. It is something to be revered. And I think it's sad how our culture just like, oh, you're broken now, like I have a
Hmm.
friend who's like, oh, you help broken vaginas, sorry. You have to have a good sense of humor about it,
Yeah,
but
of course.
but it's just like that, you know, that idea. And like this same person, I appreciate having him as a friend, because he's like, kind of, he'll say kind of, I think, what
Yeah.
people usually don't. And he's just like, yeah, why do women breastfeed so long? It's like they ruin their boobs, and stuff. And it's like, I think that's the typical like mindset of this. But yet I never really thought that I would enjoy breastfeeding and like have like appreciate my body even more after going, through
Yeah.
pregnancy. Like there's so much, and this can be such an amazing opportunity for women to really come into their power. I think a
Yep.
lot of that power is taken from us when we go to
Yep.
the doctor to, get on birth control. And like, I'm not downplaying that, but at the same time, it's like we're giving away this ability to really understand our bodies and our cycle. And I think we've just
Yeah.
come so far away from who we were, 100 plus years ago, way before that too. It's like, and where we're in tune with the earth rhythms. And so, trying to find this balance of like modern life and acknowledging where we are, and also trying to be in tune with our innate self. And I think motherhood and, um, birthing and all of that is an amazing opportunity to come into that, like, who we really are. And even if it's just a short glimpse, it's like, wow. And I have some patients that are like, I want to walk in, I want an epidural, like, I want to lay here, have this baby.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works out for them. And then others are like, I want a natural birth, in a tub. I want to birth in the ocean with the dolphins. And it's like, just, they want to feel that animalistic. And so it's just like, and totally different experiences. And women today, have kind of had that opportunity to choose, but sometimes life chooses a different path. Um, and so that's real too. That's something that I try to prepare women for. If they're like, I want a natural birth, it's like, baby might have another idea. So let's at
Mhm.
least open your mind to other possibilities, so that you are aware. Because I've seen traumas come when women just don't know, and then they feel like it's happening to them.
Mm.
But if I can help them feel a sense of control because they've done all they can to prepare,
Yeah.
and now you can let go and let what baby needs happen. Or, because there's so many things with this time in our life that we don't have control over. And so just educating women on that can really, I think, give them peace and security and calmness, and just knowing that they're prepared the best that they can. Um, so yeah, it's an amazing time, and I'm so blessed to like be sitting with myself in this time and helping other women in this time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's what a cool gift to get to, and it speaks volumes of your character to be able to be in that position where you can see the different states, not only of the body, but of like the psychological profile and some of the things that come up. And maybe this speaks to earlier in the conversation when you first moved out here, you were working with special needs kids. How did that relationship help you understand, you know, more about relationships? It sounds to me like you would see the kids, you'd see their families, and that probably gave you some really interesting insights into relationships about life and motherhood and fatherhood and being kids. Like, you could speak to how that changed you as far as understanding relationships.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much. I learned so much from my kids, and
Yeah.
a lot of the kids, so if you think of, kids with special needs, a lot of times we think, speech therapy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of speech therapists in the schools, and we think, autism, and there's occupational therapists. A lot of times they're helping kids with like sensory issues. For physical therapy, a lot of people don't even know there's physical therapists, in the schools. And I helped a lot of the kids that primarily had gross motor issues, where they,
Mm-hmm.
had issues walking, going up and down stairs, things like that. And the range was wide. So some, they couldn't move at all and
Mm-hmm.
had, really high tone and were kind of like in these tightened positions. And then others, they just needed a little bit of help to be able to go up and downstairs or something like that. So a wide variety. But one thing I learned is just how special every child is. And I would really try to like see who they were, like even if they couldn't speak, just talk to them and treat them like just a normal person, and just to see that connection in their eyes, and just their calmness, when I would come versus maybe like a new person walking in or something. It's just like understanding that we had built a trust and relationship even without that communication, our
Mm-hmm.
typical communication. But the bigger picture of the family, seeing how parents came together with the team of the school. We have a annual meeting, an IEP meeting,
Mm-hmm.
where we talk about the kids' individualized education plan. And so it was nice to touch base, with the family every year. And some we had good relationships, others, it was okay, but just understanding, getting a glimpse of how difficult it must have been for them, um,
Mm-hmm.
to have this idea, especially now as a parent, have this idea that it started during pregnancy of
Mm-hmm.
like, you have this kid, that is going to come into your life. And, our society is just like, oh, you got to get the stroller, you got to get, all
Mm-hmm.
these things. And then they have this perception of what this child and this life is going to be like and what it's going to be like for their family. And then, maybe something happened in utero, something happened during birth, and things changed. And for the parents, knowing that I was meeting them when the child was about 3 years old or even later in life, what they had gone through up to that point and how strong they were, how resilient they were, um, and are, it's
Yeah.
just, it was, it was amazing to see. And the variety of families, everyone, I
Mm-hmm.
think, is trying to do what the best that they can. Some families, like, just went above and beyond, and maybe they had the means that they could,
Right.
take their kids to, access surf, which is like they have equipment for people with special needs,
Oh, I lost you there.
do all kinds of things
Right.
in the water. And then, or horseback riding, things that we have on the island that cater to people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And then others, it's like you're just trying to get them to show up to a meeting, and it's just like this wide range of care that these children get. But knowing that no matter how that person or parent shows up, like just this acknowledgement and like understanding just a piece of their life and how like challenging it is to just be a parent, but then to see like, they have that extra layer of the amount of doctor's visits they have to go to and appointments and equipment that they need to get. And so a lot of people think, oh, how did you do that? It's so sad. But it's like, no, like, one, I learned so much from them. And two, it's like I get to be the best part of their day, and like sometimes they just want to get up and move,
Yeah.
and get in their stander that helps them be able to stand upright so that they can look people in the eye. Like I get to help them with that and train people to help them with that every day. Like it was such an amazing experience. So.
I love I, I love it. I think that speaks volumes of why you're really good at what you do. The way we show up in life and the way we see our situation is usually a pretty big barometer of who we are on the inside. And how do you think it trained you? Like, I don't want to say trained, but on some level, it showed you a way you can be, and it gave you a unique perspective in your own life. What are some things that you do in your own life now because you went through that particular section of life, or because you were able to do that for people? What are some lessons that you've learned there that you apply in your life now, and you can help that you teach other people?
Yeah. I think I think the biggest thing, is gratitude and
Mm,
just, being
yep.
grateful for everything that we have
Yeah.
and um, mobility and, being a big piece of that, but just just everything. And it's not, just that, but people in our lives and different, experiences. It's just like you heard about, that friend of yours that passed away, that it's just like they're my age, like,
Yeah.
it's like I really have to be grateful because it can be taken from us like that. And I think, in physical therapy, I had, so if I can kind of think back to my,
Yeah.
when I was, even before physical therapy school, I was in my undergrad. And I think a
Hmm.
very poignant experience that I had that really impacted my life was this lady who said, my husband and I retired, and um, we thought we were going to travel the world. And he ended up getting, like, I forgot his medical something. And then she was in the physical therapy clinic that I was working at, because she needed, a double knee replacement. And she's
Mm.
like, will ever be able to go anywhere now. And I'm just like, she's like, so travel and do everything you can while you're young. And I was like, okay, I promise. And I did, and we're here in Hawaii because of
Hmm.
that. But I think, it's that I'm always reminding myself and now my son, my
Yeah.
husband and I try to talk about it. It's just like, we lay in bed and just talk about, at the end of the day, all the things that we're grateful for. And it's like the roof over our head and, just basic things. Like we try to live a minimalist life
Yeah.
um, and just enjoy nature and the people and relationships and trying to find, gratitude in the simple things and that we don't need a lot to be happy. So I think that's the biggest thing is, yeah, just kind of that we don't need a lot to be happy, I think, and soaking up every day and not getting caught up in the rat race and like the stresses, because it doesn't matter. And I think we talked about COVID. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's also a thing that it was just like, it doesn't matter. And we can make it matter. But then at the end of the day, like, what happens? You're just sitting here stressed out about something that you can't impact in that very moment. And
Hmm.
then, bringing it back to all that, like, how our body can be impacted by like our stress and everything and stress hormones and what we think about impacts us on like a visceral level. And it's like, why go through that experience, so I'll like just try to observe myself. I also kind of try to apply, like, the Buddhist principles,
Hmm.
and and meditate as well. I think that's also something I know, if I haven't been into like a even just a simple meditation
Yeah.
practice or breathing practice, like I notice it where it's like I'm getting caught up in those feelings. So trying to come back to all these things and just like, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
I love it. It's interesting, and I too am a huge fan of nature, and I think everybody's probably a fan of nature once they sit around a beautiful area, or they go on a hike, or they go to the beach. And in Hawaii, it's very difficult to not be in awe of the environment in which you're surrounded by. And
Yeah.
I'm often mesmerized by it. There's almost like a language in nature when you go
Mm.
out and like you look at the trees or you look at the plants, and if you stare long enough, or if you just sit with it long enough, it's almost like secrets are revealed to you. Sometimes
Mhm.
I watch this vine. I have this vine that climbs up a tree at my house, and I sit out there and I think to myself, how does it know to climb up 30% of the tree? And then on July 9th at 2:22, it releases this flower at a 35-degree angle, right when the sun is at its zenith. It's like, how does it know that? And then all of a sudden it hits me like, how do I know how to live my best life? And you're like, oh, that's nature just talking to me. Like, it's going to be
Yeah.
all right. Like, there's a plan in place. And if you worry about climbing up the tree the wrong way, like, just stop. Just be in the moment. It's interesting. What do you think about like the nature of language? Are you able, like, is that too far out there, or do you see it too? Or you incorporate it into the world you're doing? Or what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful idea. I mean, even just the simplicity of
Yeah.
colors, and I think there's been enough research of like
Yeah.
blues, right behind me, the ocean, blues and greens, are calming to our system. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, I don't think that's coincidence, it's like that is nature,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, yeah, just how we feel in those moments of silence and silencing all the noise of the world, the lights of the world, and getting out in nature. And it's like there is a language. I never really pieced that together as its own communication, but there is so much. It's just a quieter voice, and we have to really listen, on that level.
Yeah.
When we're used to a world that's shouting at us and blinking at us, and it's like you have to be aware and really like want that, I think, or you're forced into it because you've
Mm-hmm.
hit rock bottom, but
Yep.
I think, if we can choose to listen and be in nature and silence it and silence the world, I think, man, we really can learn so much about ourselves. And I mean, I think we used to do before we had kids,
Mm-hmm.
we used to do a lot more like hikes, and I've hiked Haleakala on
Yeah.
Maui. There's the craters, and so we have a group of friends that we would try to do that hike with. Not annually, but maybe we would at least try annually, even it would be biannually. But just meeting some of these people for the first time and doing this hike together, we became best friends, because it's like you're going through such a tough experience, and being out in nature and just the conversations that would come, and the like how it would just help us like tap into this real authentic, ourselves. And it's like I felt like I got to know that I've known them for 5 years, and I've known them for a weekend, really. It's
Yeah.
just it does something to our souls that um, nothing else can.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great way to put it. And there is something that when you share a relationship, not only with someone, but the environment, it's like an altered state of conscious. Like you're all identifying on this other level, and you're being affected by the song of nature, be it the wind or the environment, or the flowers, or just the terrain. You really get to have a different perspective and how you fit into the world. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's mesmerizing to me to think about that. Like, I don't know. You also have like a really strong commitment to education, and it seems
Mm-hmm.
like you're always learning, whether it's going hiking with friends on Maui, or learning about the body, or starting to learn about like the Buddhism or the Eastern traditions. Is it just a natural sense of curiosity? Have you always been curious, or how did you have this affinity for learning so much?
Oh, I've never thought about like that being an origin story. I'm not sure. That's interesting. I I definitely have always had that. Yeah, I guess it stems from a curiosity of like
Mm,
I have this deep understanding of like or wanting, I guess, a deep
yeah.
understanding. And it's always that, why is it that way though? And I'm not rebellious by any means. Maybe I actually should be more,
Right.
But even still, like I would, conform, but also like, why are we doing this though? Even though
Hmm.
I might keep it to myself, but always curious about the why. And I think I think when, I was trying to figure out what path of education I wanted
Right.
to do early on, I remember thinking if I became a physical therapy assistant, PTA, not a
Okay.
PT, that would be so much easier because it's like 2 year certification versus like, an extra 3 years of, doctorate program on top of, your 4 year degree and all this. And just like, you just follow what somebody tells you to do. Like they create a plan and then you work with the patient, which is the best part. You're working with that patient directly and helping them like figure out how to do the exercises that this PT said they should do to get this goal or, achieve their
All
goal.
right.
And I just remember thinking that for like a second, like maybe I should be a PTA. And I was like, I know I wouldn't be happy because I'd always be like, well, why? Why? So I think, yeah, it's probably innate. I don't know how much was nature and nurture, but I've always had that like and wanting to understand on a deeper level. And I think my body, has been a guide, like I said. And then that question of just like, but why has
Yeah.
been another guide. Yeah. I think when I work with a patient and I'm able to get them, reach this goal, but maybe there's like a cap and we're trying other things to get them even, you know, feeling even better or their bladder urgency even better. And it's like, why can't we improve it, past that? And so I think that has like led me to thinking and, I guess furthering my education in other areas because it's like, oh, traditional
Yeah.
physical therapy like approach for this should have worked. And it did for these 7 other patients. Why isn't it working for this one? And so it's like chasing that question, has led me further to understanding I don't know anything.
It's true. It's true that the deeper you go, the bigger it gets. It's
Yeah.
like a flashlight always illuminates the fact that there's way more darkness around you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's so dark in here. Look at, I can only see this little focus of light. But the
Yeah.
question of why is so important. And I think it probably speaks to the idea of the symbolic nature of your logo, of that triangle. It's like, well, why? Oh, well, this side. Well, why this side? And if is that something that you incorporate into the actual practice, is helping the people understand why they have this pain? It seems like that would be therapeutic in its own nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I don't know if it's so much like part of my process other than I'm usually
Sure.
talking out loud, and I'm
Yeah, yeah.
okay, we found out that you have, this on this hip and, this is being pulled up a little bit higher than the other, but why? And I
Mhm.
do that and they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
where I think they would have been okay with the first answer, but then I posed that one, and it's like, yeah. So I invite them on this journey with me to find the root cause, because I'm not happy unless we figure out, what's really going on. And I feel like I'm learning and gaining the tools to dive deeper where before it was just like, oh, well, we're not sure. Maybe we'll send you back to your doctor and be like, physical
Right.
therapy didn't work, and it's
Right.
like, I'm not okay with that answer. And I have recognized that like I okay, this is my own coined term. I
Yeah.
have what's called a Jesus syndrome.
Okay.
Where I feel like I, try to and want to be that healer. And like, I grew up Christian and just, I think I really loved everything that Jesus did. It was just like, I want to be like him. And, we're taught to do that, but like,
Yeah.
no, I want to heal like him, And I think it was almost to the point where it's like, problematic because like we can't, right? And but anyway, I have coined that term because I've had to like realize and recognize that like, okay, you're trying to heal this person, but they are on their own journey.
Mhm.
And so I've had to kind of unlearn and like rewire my brain to be like, no, I'm a guide. I have a set of knowledge and skills and experience that I am bringing to the table. And they can, choose to take from this or not. They can choose
Yeah.
to go to someone else, or maybe there's, acupuncturist or chiropractor or, some other healer that really should also be helping them, or instead of. I'm open to all of that. But if they choose to, take from my experience, then I offer them the best that I can. And that has allowed, well, it just takes a weight off,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
weight of like trying to heal the world. And like, but it really puts it back in their court where it needs to be, because it's their body,
Yep.
it's their journey, it's their mind, it's, and I felt that patients, like, yeah, they respond well to that too. And I think me educating them on their body and showing them this little picture of like, okay, this is what I'm seeing, you move in this way, and that's probably what's causing your hip pain. Let's see where that tightness is coming from. And maybe that's where my unique, expertise in learning how to listen to the body and, release some tension that maybe has been there for a while. And then they're like, oh yeah, that feels different. Well, now it's in their court to then, keep that breathing happening that helped open up that tissue, or, that
Yeah.
exercise to strengthen in this new alignment, So it's back and forth, but it's very much, supporting their journey.
I love that. I love the language you use about like, I invite them to go on this journey with me to help heal themselves. The idea and the recognition and the humility to understand that the healing happens inside the body for someone else, and you don't want them to like depend on you to be like you're not the person that like that's how addiction happens, in my opinion. Like people say, okay, well, I need to go here, I need this pill, or I need this thing in order to be better. But what they really need is the tools to understand what their problem is and understand why they're feeling this way, why they have this thing, and then you empower them to figure out how to fix that problem. And it's like that old saying, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. And it just seems like I love the way you use the idea of a guide. Like that seems like such a more of a holistic approach. And I'm really thankful to hear that. Like no wonder people want to come to you and hang out with you and come to you for guidance, because you're showing them how to fix problems that can deal with them. Isn't it? Do you find that people that come to you, like it seems to me that people in pain, they often have other problems, like it can manifest in their relationships too. Have you noticed that people that start healing their body start healing their relationships?
Yeah. Yes. I think, I'm trying to think of an example,
Okay.
but I do think it impacts, like we said, all that
Yeah.
whole aspect of their life. I think the thing that comes to mind quickest for me is people that come, like with a lot of
Right.
anxiety. And it's like you can just see it. Sometimes in the email, the first
Oh
email
yeah.
they send to me, the first point of contact, I'm like, I think I get this person a little bit,
Yeah.
It's like, I try not to let my brain go to like too far, but really
Right.
just be present and listen to them,
Mm-hmm.
and give them that opportunity and not create this idea of who I think they are before I even meet them. But with that being said, experience has taught me that like, people that are anxious and have
Yeah.
that like more up, nervous system, a lot of times have issues that bring them to me um because it's impacting, every
Yeah. That's a
part of their
great
system.
word. Yeah.
And I think on a relationship level, it depends, but I do see that can trickle into, relationships with how they see their kids, or,
Mm-hmm.
their spouse. And so I hope that I can be kind of this like calming, grounding energy, when they come to see me. And a lot of them do feel like, man, I leave here and I feel so calm. And, and it's like, okay, take that into your life. And, like,
Yeah.
with your children and just realize hopefully that, they don't have to live here and they can experience a lower, calmer vibration and have that impact their life. I mean, I try not to be like, oh yeah, I help them with their relationships as well, but just
Right.
hopefully, you know, yeah, hopefully it can spread on a small level that, yeah, maybe years later impacts them on a deeper level.
Yeah, it makes sense if you can figure out how to have a better relationship with your body, then the people in your life are an extension of that body, and you would probably change your relationship. Have you noticed any sort of similarities or differences? Like, is there, and this is just maybe just your opinion on this, is that are there some similarities between depression in different parts of the body versus anxiety in different parts of the body? Like, I don't know if those things are even connected, but have you noticed any sort of similarities between certain ailments and certain parts of the body?
Hmm. I'm not sure. I maybe in more, 5 years, I will have an amazing answer for you, I
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah.
And I think, research is just really coming out and showing like how all of that is
Yeah.
played out in our body and in our mind and our gut, right? Like all of that
Yeah. Yep.
so intertwined. And I think it's just being absorbed by mainstream, like,
Hmm.
so but what comes to mind, this is probably not answering your question, but what comes to mind is postpartum depression
Okay.
and how, that is kind of getting more of a microphone
Yep.
than it used to, which is good. It deserves that. But I have had, I will say, more friends and patients with postpartum anxiety. And
Whoa.
I did not even know before having a kid that existed. I was like, it's only postpartum depression, right? And then like a lot of the patients and friend that I'm thinking of, it's like they were so anxious about everything and didn't even realize it and didn't have anxiety before. Like this came after having their baby. And so that just, I don't know if it comes from a different part of the body, but I think it's interesting, one that it came, after their body went through a
Hmm.
big change. And then thank goodness they were aware of it and then sought
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
And, both of them, I only have a couple of experiences. Both of them were seeing a mental health specialist and were put on like a very low dose of anti-anxiety medication. And they both were like a light lifted. Like I had this clarity of like, why am I so anxious? And
Yeah.
so they both had a goal of like getting off of it as soon as they, but yeah, I don't know much about that other than it's just like that was news to me that
Yeah.
that's real. Yeah.
You mentioned the word aware. Like, what role does awareness play in the people that come to you and the way you interact with people?
It's huge. I will tell patients, I'm like, the light might go on like how their posture is and how
Hmm.
that plays into their pelvic floor, symptoms that they're experiencing or tightness in their neck or back. And I'm like, okay, you're aware of it. And that's the first piece. And maybe that's all
Right.
we had was bringing that awareness to them and giving them one exercise to work on their breathing or something. That's all we got through the first session, and sometimes that's like a lot for them, so um yeah, the quote that comes to mind, I think it's Theodore Roosevelt, that says, if you believe you can, you're halfway there. And I fully believe that. And I
Yeah.
think that belief can be awareness. If you're aware that you are, or whatever XYZ is, you're halfway there. So
Yeah.
that's huge. It's just helping people feel their body and come into their body is so healing. And sometimes that can help so many issues that they're having. That awareness can be like, yeah, the foundation point for most of the healing that they need. So,
It's interesting. I've been speaking to some people pretty recently that have brought up some really interesting articles that talk about like sound and frequency and like the magnetic, what was I talking, the electromagnetic fields around us and stuff. Have you ever like dove into any of that to like see how that might be affecting people? I spoke to this woman yesterday who was speaking about like the magnetic field of the heart, and like that's how you can, when she was explaining it, she did a really great job at explaining the way in which she gave an example of how she used to work in this really low income neighborhood. And when people would come to the door, she could just see the level of stress on their face. And like, this person is going through a lot right now. And you could feel it. And she equated that feeling to almost like the same feeling you get when you push magnets together, you know? And it's like, it makes so much sense in so many ways. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Oh, I have a lot.
Okay, awesome. Let's hear them.
This is an area I'm so open to and so interested in. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that like, technology's finally catching up and we're
Yep.
able to like measure these things, that I think have been felt by the human, you know, race and animals and everything for millennia. But
Yeah.
it's just I think this is part of, if not most of what, Eastern medicine has kind of been aware of and
Yep.
grounded in, and Western, is now acknowledging a little bit because yeah, the research is finally able to do it. We can study it, which is fine, but
Yeah.
so I will say I don't know a ton about it, but I can feel it. Like that is what, and I don't do Reiki or anything, but I use a technique called visceral manipulation or visceral mobilization. And it's like where we learn to train our hand to feel the different tissues and the different layers of the
Mm.
body. And it's becoming very sensitive to all of those things. But also, once you get to, let's say, the liver, for instance, and you know the anatomy and everything, it's very Eastern meets Western, I think. um, it's grounded in anatomy, but there's this energetic piece to it, and you're listening to this organ. And I mean, I can only say it's that energetic field that I can feel, this gentle like pulsing, and each organ has their own rhythm, their own pulsing, um, and movement to it, and it's beautiful to like tap into. And I've also felt that magnetic either
Mhm.
pull or push. Yeah. And what's interesting, working with pregnant women and
Yeah.
doing like, internal like pelvic floor work and preparing the muscles for birth, or helping them, with pain or things like that. There's been times where it's like I feel that magnet. It's almost like you're pushing, the wrong ends of a magnet to
Yeah,
feel that
totally.
way. I feel that. And I'm like, okay, baby, I get
Mhm.
it. It's so interesting. And I can't fully explain it. And I definitely have that why, like, what is
Mhm.
going on, this curiosity. And so that, again, that's the driving force of like furthering my education and knowledge and skill set and all of this, in addition to, the typical physical therapy, you know, realm and all the tools that we have with that and mindset of that. So, but broadening to that and knowing that there is more going on. And I've been able to help patients knowing that on a deeper level. And so I'm just, even if it isn't like, let's say it isn't like we don't know enough, and there is that like what's really happening, we don't know enough. Well, we know something is going on, so why not just trust the body, trust that there's something else there that we don't understand, and
Mhm.
that's okay. And if we can reach, one person and help them find a deeper healing because of that, then it's worth questioning, it's worth understanding deeper, a deeper level on. So
Yeah.
uh,
I love it. And it's almost right. It's right on the body. Like people have like some people are AB negative, some people are B positive, some are A negative. Like, what does it mean when your blood type has a certain charge to it? Like, does that affect the relationships you have with other people? I know some of my Japanese friends, like they really have the whole blood types breaking down into personalities. Like you, oh, you're B positive, and this is like your chart right here. This is the kind of things that you can have right there. And it's interesting to look at. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but it's like you said, that there's got to be, if there's a negative charge or a positive charge in your body, that has to affect the way in which you navigate towards certain things. When we look at nature, like birds fly south for the winter or north based on a magnetic field. So if we can agree that we're part of nature, then we have to be affected by that. It's so fascinating. And maybe that has to do with this spiritual awakening that's happening now. Like maybe it's the magnetic North Pole moving, or I don't know. It's so fast. I always think about it. Why too?
Yeah, no, I don't know enough about it. I wish I had, all this
Me
research
too.
I could you out, but
Right.
you brought to mind all the, eating for your blood type and all that. Like, again, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I know people that do, and they look fabulous and they feel fabulous. So maybe there's something to it that I'm missing out on, but no, there's definitely something to it. I think even just like an MRI, it's like we're taking pictures with energy, and it's like how that moves through the different tissues, and they're sending, an electrical impulse, and it's going to flow slower through some tissues and faster through some tissues. And so it's like, yeah, we can measure and see things because of energy. And yeah, so it's there. I think some people just don't understand it and then throw it out. But I think it's those that are willing to like hang in there, and, technology's only going to, catch up, and we're understanding, all the quantum physics and all of that on a deeper level. So it's like, okay, humans are brilliant and figuring it out, but also like, I think that can in some way be limiting when it's like, we cannot touch it until we know more. I think that can create some limitations, but
yeah, it's interesting. I know that I talk to a lot of people that publish some papers or some doctors sometimes, and just a lot of really cool people. And it seems to me that for quite some time, we went through this period where we were real hardcore on science and we threw out anything that you couldn't measure. But there's so much great information and some of the subjectivity that people threw out. It's like they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And, I was speaking to some people that in the 50s were studying psychedelics, and they used to, part of the questionnaires they would give to people was not only to the patient, but they would give it to the family members and be like, is your husband less of an asshole now or more? And like, but and then they kind of stopped measuring the family because it's subjective. But like we should be measuring the family. Isn't like a measurement of healing the tears of joy in a spouse, or like the tears of joy in a mother or a father to see their kid doing better? Like that's a real measurement, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it is. I think, all that plays into our healing and, how the families are. And that's an interesting point. I think when we can get back to accepting, case studies instead of just like, how do we measure, this huge, amount of people? It's like, we're only going to find what works for the majority, but, we're not all the same. Right. And so it's like, when we can get back to appreciating what happens with, this person, and acknowledging that, like, okay, we don't understand it, but this was helpful for this person. Maybe it will be helpful for 10 other people, that read the study. But the impact of the family. I mean, I think going back to the kids, it's like we all impact one another. And like, I think, okay, so this is maybe a little bit of, off topic here, but one thing that I learned so much from my kids with special needs is they taught me about the quieter, more like spiritual side of things. And we all help one another. We're all in this like life together. And, maybe I'm helping them physically, and I have that, gift, if you will. And then they see the world differently. And they are now teaching me how to
Mm-hmm.
see the world differently, how to quiet down, and and then how, how are they impacting their parents? And so we all can support and help and heal one another, and our energies are all working together to be more whole. And we are in this life together, I think, to find healing and wholeness. And um, yeah, yeah. Side
That's a
note.
beautiful, that's a no, that's a beautiful summation, I think, right there. That's such a great way to put a bow on it, I think. But before I let you go, first off, I really enjoyed our conversation, Dr. Jen. I appreciate the things you're doing. I hope one day soon to come and meet you and see everything you got going on. That would
Yeah.
be amazing. But before I let
Yeah.
you go, maybe you can tell people where they can find you. What do you have coming up and what you're excited about?
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I'm not great with like social media or anything, but but I do have my website, naluphysicaltherapy.com,
Mm-hmm.
NALU. And then I'm on Instagram as well. Just starting that. And that's also Nalu underscore physical therapy. And what I have coming up, I'm excited about this year. I am hoping to put out more workshops and education for pregnant and postpartum women, birth prep, postpartum healing, and all that comes with it, as well as bladder health. I feel like that's such an important topic for any age and any gender, but yeah, one thing, older women, I used to work in the skilled nursing
Uh-huh.
facility. Like a lot of times, if we don't have good bladder control, then that is sometimes the leading cause of needing to go into a nursing home. And so it really is important to get ahead of this. And when we start to have issues, to find help, because there's usually always something we can do about it, and it impacts the rest of our life. It impacts how we feel about ourselves. It impacts how we show up for our family. And so yeah, so I'm hoping to just help more women through education on that, with groups, but also I am here doing one-on-one therapy and love working with love working with my clients.
And people go to your website, they can book an appointment or book a call or like can they do that on your website?
Yep, they can book a call. I actually need to set up where they can schedule, but I do everything like slow mo. Like they can fill out the form online, and then I personally reach out to them. For me, this is such like a personal experience, and I try to yeah, just make it a very comfortable, enjoyable, empowering, experience from the first point of contact. But yeah, that's the easiest thing. Or call, email, text. My website and information, or sorry, my phone and information is on the website. But yeah, that's how I have it set up right now. Yeah, there's a lot of things I can improve to make it go smoother and faster, and that's also something I hope to do, this next year. But right now I'm so old school. I'm just like,
Yeah,
let's just talk.
I like
So,
that. Yeah, I think it's refreshing, and I I think that the people that are attracted to you will be the people that show up and
mhm.
love that. I really think that things are mapped out that way. So we'll
Yeah.
hang on briefly afterwards because I want to speak to you briefly afterwards. But to
Sure.
everybody who got to hang out with us today, whether you're watching it today, tomorrow, or a year from now, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Go down to the show notes, talk out Dr. Jenna. She's an amazing individual with a very unique way of helping people see the world, and she's really gone out of the way to develop a path that I think is different than most people. So go down to the show notes, look her up, go on her website, check her out. That's all we got for today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a
Thank
wonderful day. Aloha.
you. Aloha.